You both come from Adventist families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll start. So we face each other.
Don't look at the camera.
No, not at all. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. We meet almost every Sabbath in church, but now we'll have a more in-deep conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Jeremy, let's start with you,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about your place of origin and your family of origin.
Okay. I was born in Michigan and grew up in South Bend, Indiana.
I've been through there many times when
Yeah.
visiting Andrews. So
Yeah.
that's the
Notre Dame
airport place for
And Notre Dame is right there. So
yeah,
very famous university there.
University.
Grew up in Indiana and went to South Bend Junior Academy, Adventist school, K through 8, and then went to Andrews Academy for high school in Berrien Springs. That's where I met my wife, Kyla, there.
We'll come to that.
Yeah, and then we spent a lot of time in Pathfinders. My dad was a Pathfinder director,
Oh.
so I grew up in the Pathfinders and loved going camping and I just had a great experience with Adventist education as a child, and then growing up as a teenager. Really enjoyed my
Wonderful.
time.
So you are kind of an outdoors person.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
love outdoors. My
Mhm.
wife and I both love to hike, and the kids love hiking, and we just love spending time outdoors. And
Wonderful.
camping is fun. And,
Yeah. So in some respects, not always Adventist education is very beneficial for everyone.
Mhm.
I hear you having good memories.
Yes.
It worked well for you.
Yeah.
Everything was all right.
For me, yeah, I mean, for the
Yeah.
most part, I enjoyed, everything. Grade school was a small school, 45 kids.
Oh,
So, we had like 4 teachers, I think, at one time. And so I really enjoyed having the close-knit family type atmosphere, because we all know each other, we all grew up with each other, and it was very enjoyable.
it was not a little scary, like in a fishbowl, knowing everything about everything?
Not for me, I didn't know any
No,
better.
yeah.
So I thought it was great. It was, it was a shock when I went to academy, because I went from a school of 40 to almost 300 kids.
Oh.
So, at first it was a little overwhelming being around so many Adventists and different different people. So, but I have nothing but good memories.
About your parents, by profession, what were they doing?
My dad, he worked in construction. He had his own business. He did automotive painting, and now he has a wedding barn in Three Oaks, Michigan. So they refurbished a barn from the 1800s,
Oh, my.
and it's kind of a rustic type idea, and people come from Chicago or all over, and they have weddings there.
Interesting.
So, and then my mom works in the service industry in Chicago, and she works like customer service, dealing with issues that people have with the business or whatever. So,
Yeah. So you lived in a medium-sized city?
yeah, South Bend. At the time, it wasn't huge, but we lived in a small neighborhood. All the kids knew each other, run up and down the street, go out and play for hours in the summer. Quite different than it is now,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
that's how I grew up. Yeah.
But also with connection with the big city like Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, we go there quite often. It's a couple-hour drive, so we spend a lot of time out there too.
Do you have siblings?
I do have a sister. She lives in California, and she's 2 years younger than me. And we just saw her this summer, and she has 6 kids.
6 kids? Wow. Okay, Kyla, about you?
I grew up in Michigan.
Far from South Bend?
Yeah, it's like 40 minutes from
40
South Bend.
minutes,
Yeah. So when I was in 7th grade, we moved to Berrien Springs.
Oh. What made you move there?
My dad is a teacher in the Adventist school system also. So my dad was a teacher, and then I married a teacher. They moved so that I could go to Andrews Academy. They did not want to send me. We were in Grand Rapids that did not have an academy. and they did not want to send me away to a boarding academy, but Adventist education was a priority. So they moved just so that I could go and keep attending Adventist school.
Some connections. I don't know if they are real or just imaginary, because Grand Rapids is the headquarters of some publishers, famous publishers, and you are in the writing.
Yes.
Do you think it's any connection?
There is no connection whatsoever. I was 12 years old.
Yeah. Some memories about religion in family. You spoke about schools and things, but in the family?
Yeah, so my family obviously was Adventist, and Adventist education was always a priority. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, but there was never a question that that we would go to public school. It was always, we made the sacrifices we needed to make to go to Adventist education, and involved in the church. And
very commendable.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I have a younger sister.
So both of you have been in Adventist schools?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. By profession, what about your parents?
So my dad's a teacher. He
Yeah, you
taught.
said, yeah.
Yep, he taught 8th grade at Village Elementary in Berrien Springs for the last 20 years, and then he just retired last year. So he's relaxing now. And my mom works in human resources for a company. She's a manager, so she helps oversee employees, hiring, and things like that.
What were some of your early interests?
Reading and writing, yes, and writing,
And
always,
writing.
yes.
Wow.
My parents read to me from a very, very young age, so I always loved stories and books. And before I could write, they got me a tape recorder, which kids these days don't know what that is, but they got me a tape recorder, and I would record stories into a tape recorder before I could actually physically write them out. So I was writing stories.
Stories created by you?
Yes,
Really?
yes, just from my head. I would do a lot of stories about heaven, actually, what I imagined heaven would be like. And so I would be in heaven, and I would go on all these little adventures and visit other planets and swim with dolphins and things like that. And my parents still have some of them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And do you listen to those tapes once in a while?
I did several years ago, but it's been a while.
And what were your reactions listening to your child imagination? And
I'm glad my parents kept them. They're very precious memories.
very interesting. Were your perceptions of heaven quite accurate?
We'll see,
we'll
won't we? Yes.
But the mind doesn't know, the eye didn't see, the ear didn't hear.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, we can't imagine how
so
amazing it's going to be.
You have to ask your family to keep those, to take
Yeah.
with you in heaven.
We'll ask God if we can take those to heaven with us.
Take also the tape recorder.
Yes.
You don't know if that will be there.
But I loved animals a lot, so I think a lot of them were animal focused, like being able to sit down with a lion or play with a bear, you know, things like that. Captured my imagination as a child, for sure.
You were also an outdoor person?
Yes, yeah, we like hiking and camping, and the North Georgia mountains, like right near us, are very beautiful. So we're always looking for trails to go hiking on the weekends.
And finding waterfalls.
And waterfalls, we love waterfalls.
Yeah.
But just being out in nature is very soothing and rejuvenating and healing, and I think God created it that way purposefully. We can get very busy in our lives, and that just helps renew my spirit anyway.
So you came to know each other in high school, the same class?
No, I was 2 classes ahead. So I was a senior and she was a sophomore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what were the first perceptions?
Well, we were friends for quite a while before we started dating.
Yeah.
We knew the same group of people, and we got to know each other, and that's how we, came to know each other. And I think it was much better being friends for a while first.
But I always thought he was cute.
Excuse me?
I always thought he was cute, though, even
Yeah.
when we were friends.
So you went on, according to the book, a good friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and to then move on,
Yeah.
some emotions, more emotions, then decisions.
Yep. Then it grew into something else, and we said, okay, let's do this. Yeah, so we dated in high school and college, and then got married.
So how long it took from?
About 2 years, because there was a year, we dated for a year, and then I went away for about a year to be a missionary in Romania. Then I came back and we dated for almost another year. So I guess total 3 years, but dating 2 years worth of time together.
So Romania has a place in that.
Yeah, it was in between.
It was in between.
Yeah.
So what did you do at that time? You just forgot about Kyla? Or you wrote letters? Or what?
No, we, I guess you'd say.
Because you didn't have emails, probably.
No,
Yeah.
we weren't together when I went to Romania.
Uh-huh.
So we kind of took a break, as they say.
How do you feel about that? How did you feel about that?
It was my decision at the time, so it was okay. But I think we both grew a lot during that year apart.
Yeah.
And then he came back, and I was like, I still have feelings for you, and so we got back together.
So during that time you didn't write too much to each other, or you did?
We talked a few times on the phone.
Yeah.
You were able to call.
Yeah,
I came
awesome.
back for graduation, so I came back and visited, and that's when we kind of reconnected
I
and
see.
started talking again, and
So let's speak about your trip to Romania.
sure.
Yeah, so it was Mrs. Jacobs, Jasmine Jacobs.
Jasmine
probably.
Jacobs, yeah, she's the,
recruiting you.
yes, we actually,
Do you know
my,
her?
Yeah.
we both worked with her in high school. I went on a mission trip in the summer, and after my senior year, I went there. We did a 2-week flag camp, fun learning about God, and so that's when I first was exposed to Romania, and I just fell in love with the country, the people, and it made me want to go back.
Oh, so you came first to Romania
Right.
for just 2 weeks?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the summer of '98, and then the next summer, I went back again for another 2-week summer camp, mission trip, doing the flag camp again. And when I got back from that one, I talked to Jasmine Jacobs, and they actually needed somebody to volunteer at one of their
So 3
orphanages.
trips.
Yes, the third trip was the one, like the long span.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you know Romania quite well.
Well, I did much better. It's been 20 years now since I've been there, but
So what did you like about Romania in the beginning?
it's just a beautiful country. Just
Like-
the scenery. We went through Bucharest. We saw the bronze castle, northern part in Brașov, I
Yes.
think, and then.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I remember, and it
she's
just
right in everything.
just the people were always so inviting and kind and accepting and just happy to see us. I fell in love with the kids. You know, the orphanage, you know, dealing with kids from, you know, infants all the way up to 13, 14 years old, and you know, hear their stories, and you know, your heart breaks for them, but you want to, you know, give them some joy in their life, and try to bring some happiness to them, and that's kind of when I also decided I want to be a teacher.
Really?
I kind of felt like God was calling me to work
That's
with
very
kids.
interesting. But you also have to cope with quite a number of problems, like life was quite difficult. I mean, you didn't have access to most
Yeah.
of the convenience.
Yeah, it was true. At
Yeah,
first, you know,
yeah.
it felt inconvenient, but after a while, you know, you get used to,
Yeah.
you know, life there, and
Yeah.
it becomes, you know, normal in a
Mhm.
sense. So when I was there it's about 10 months total when I was living in the orphanages in Peretu.
Peretu, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we didn't have hot water. Sometimes the electricity went out.
Yeah.
So there's some trying times, but overall, I think it was a blessing.
Some of the older children were a little disruptive. and-
Yeah, I mean, we had some run away,
Mhm.
constantly try to run away, and we'd go out and bring them back, and so it was hard sometimes. But
But
overall,
it was a growing time.
very, very much so, very much so. I mean, I did so much, I lived with them 24/7. I was, always with them, and it was.
Do you still know anything about some of them?
There's actually 2 or 3 that are on Facebook
Really?
that I am still in contact with. That are, they're adults now. They have their own kids and their own families, and yeah, it's wonderful to see that they're thriving after
So
such
that
a.
brings you lots of joy and
Yeah.
satisfaction to see
Yes.
that. In spite of, it was kind of pioneering work.
Yeah.
The place was not yet so well organized. There were many, many challenges and critical times. And,
Yeah. But overall, I mean, it was a wonderful
I'm
experience.
so glad
Yeah.
to hear that. Yeah. Probably at that time you came to speak a little Romanian, I'm sure.
A little bit, I picked up some common phrases. I could get my way around a little bit, but at the orphanage, everybody wanted to speak English, and that's one of the things we're teaching them how to, conversational English, and a lot of them knew quite a bit of English because of the constant summer trips that the groups that came over. So they were always interacting and teaching them English. So
Yes.
I didn't learn as much as I probably could have, and I've almost lost all of it since. This has been about 20 years, but yeah.
I visited the place many times, either the orphanage or the churches on Sabbath. Do you remember seeing me ever there? No, not really.
I don't
No
remember.
matter, no problem. Yeah. After that, have you been to other places for longer periods of time, or
No, that was the longest.
The longest.
Yeah, at the end of that trip, the group came in the summer, and then we went actually to Beirut in Lebanon and did a camp there. And that was another wonderful experience. I enjoy traveling. We both enjoy traveling, and when we were younger, before kids, we went to a lot of wonderful places, and just with going with this flag camp group and spreading God's love and His word and working with these kids, and they're just ready to eat it up. They want to know more, and it was just such a wonderful experience. And
What about food? Food, quite different from here.
yeah, but I loved Romanian food, the
really?
cabbage and potatoes, and that was our staple.
Yes, yes.
There was a cabbage field right behind the orphanage, and we go
yeah.
out there and we eat it raw. We just pick it up and just eat it. Sunflower seeds. There's a sunflower
Yeah.
field right across from us. We go out there. So I mean, I got to the point where I actually really enjoyed the Romanian cuisine. Definitely.
Maybe during the conversation, maybe you bring up 1 or 2 stories.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kyla, I mean both of you. So you got married how many years ago?
17.
2001. December of 2001. Yeah.
Wow.
So almost 18. Almost.
Yeah, well, it's not that much. Still the honeymoon. Yeah. And you said that from early childhood you were very fond of reading and writing. What were you thinking in terms of your future career or profession at that time?
I wanted to be a writer from a young age.
Really?
I can specifically remember like 3rd grade, like saying that I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. So it was,
Here you are.
Yep. Like, it was always my passion. When I went to school at Andrews University, I got a bachelor's in writing, in creative writing, yes. And then I went back and I did get my secondary English teaching degree. So I have a degree in education and English. So, because I enjoy kids as well. My first love is writing, but I always wanted to have a backup plan because writing is a creative, they call it a starving artist profession, right? Like, it's like being a poet or a painter, like very few people can make a living at it, right? So you need to have a backup plan. So I can do either. I can teach or I can write, but right now I am blessed that I'm able to write.
Yeah, and you also have Jeremy as your backup plan.
That's right.
It's funny because this is the 4th interview today, in the first person, it also, I mean, also a couple, you know, that person. The lady said that in her childhood, early childhood, her idea was that she wanted to become a president, the president.
Oh, the president.
Yes, yes. Not yet, but in your case, yeah, it's here. So you began creating, imagining stories before you were able to write. You said, yeah, when did you begin actually writing stories or whatever?
Yeah, like first or second grade.
Yeah.
In third and fourth grade, my friends would tell me that they wanted to be characters in my stories, and I would write like the class into a story, and everybody would read it. And in fifth grade,
And all of them were positive
yes,
characters?
yes, of course, they were all the heroes, no bad guys. Yes, had to keep everybody happy. In fifth grade, I told my teacher that I wanted to write the Christmas play for the entire school. And it's crazy to me now as an adult, because fifth grade, you're like 10 years old. They said, okay, do it. So I did. I wrote the play and that was Grand Rapids Junior Academy was where I was at the time. And I wrote it, and then I also acted like as a director. I did have a teacher kind of helping with the directing, but we put on the entire play that we had written. I had written, and then the kids acted in it. So that was a great experience for me. Now as an adult, like if a 10-year-old was like, yeah, I want to write, I'd kind of be like, really? I'm not sure if we want to trust you with this, but they did, and it was a great experience for me. So in high school, I wrote my first novel in high school.
Really?
It wasn't any good, but you need to practice. Like that's how you write and you do things. And Andrews Academy, I graduated with honors, and they let me do a story for my honors project. So I wrote like 150-page story and presented it to them. So my teachers were always very supportive of my talent, and wanted to nurture that in me, and I very much appreciate.
Starting so early to create and to write. I may ask you, but maybe not, why? Because as an older person, you may think, yeah, I have something to convey, something to convince people, and I think the best way would be to write it down, to make it known. But as a child, I don't think you had any agenda. You didn't have anything to convince anyone. Why? Do you have any explanation to that?
Just loving stories.
It was
my dad.
Expression of your personality.
Yeah. Like
it was your gift.
Yes, some people are given certain talents or some people are more logical and mathematical, like him, for example. Others are more creative from the beginning, because I also love to draw and paint and things like that. So very creative with expressing myself. But stories, I just fell in love with stories, and my dad would read to me every night. And the stories would come alive in my head, and I wanted to make my own. And as a child, obviously, like you said, you're not thinking through stories are a great medium to express things or things like that. It's just something that I enjoyed and wanted to do.
Yeah. In time, obviously you were happy about your writing, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Unapologetically, yeah?
Yes.
Good. But in time, going through school, having classes on writing, different facets of writing, teachers were not just telling you, Kyla, that's perfect. Maybe they would tell you, Kyla, think on that. Is this a natural, transition? This character is real or whatever? I don't know. Different questions.
Or criticism.
Criticism, yeah.
Yes.
How did you react to that? Did you feel like, No, who are you to tell me? I've always been writing. Or you were eager to learn. What do you remember about that time when, learning sometimes makes you feel like, or either I'm not good, I felt I was good at that, but I was deceiving myself, I was wrong. Or maybe, justifying yourself and think, no, you don't know. I have my talent, I'm a genius, don't tell me. don't.
Okay,
What
so
about you?
yes, I do have an experience with that. So through 8th grade, I always got absolutely positive feedback from all of my teachers. Like, I said I wanted to be a writer. They're like, your writing is great. Like, it was all positive. And then I got to academy, and I had a teacher, Mr. Baker, English teacher, and the first paper I wrote for him, I expected it to come back with an A+, right? And it was like red marks throughout the entire paper, and I still remember being like, oh, me? Like, this is my paper? So, it's how do you respond to criticism and adversity, right? Like, you can not take the feedback at all and say, oh, well, he's wrong. Or you can say, this must mean I'm terrible, I'm gonna quit.
Yeah.
Or you can learn from it. And so I had that moment, right? Like, what am I gonna do about this? Because you kind of feel like, oh, I'm so talented, I'm so this, and then no, you're not, So I was like, okay. So I doubled down and I said, I'm gonna learn from this. I'm going to read what mistakes that I made, and I'm going to get better. And that's the attitude that I've continued to have. And as a writer, you do receive a lot of criticism. People can review your books, they can write whatever they want. Your editor can give you feedback that, you think something's great, and they're like, no, there's an issue with this. And so I take every criticism that I get, and I always try to get better.
So
how can I improve next
so
time?
do you like to go through the same page again and again? You felt it was well done, it was ready, and they tell you, no, it's not ready, you have to go back.
Yep, then you go back to the drawing board and you do it again. And I think, like, when I talk to kids about writing, a lot of them think that they write one draft and they're done, right? And so they either feel bad about themselves because this draft they wrote is not as good as, the books they read or someone else's.
They don't know, or they don't want to make it better.
Right, or they think it should be good enough as is. Either response is not the correct response. Every professional writer writes draft after draft after draft. You're always improving and revising. The first draft is usually, even for people very talented at writing, it's usually not very good. You have to keep working. You go back at it again and again, and each time you make it better until you get to a product that you're satisfied with and your editor also is satisfied with.
Can we trust editors that much? Are they so knowledgeable and so perceptive, and sometimes they are also, messing up things?
They're human. They, they can be wrong. It's true. For the most part, I found my editors to be very wise and smart, and usually it's like a collaboration. We're working together, where they might say, have you thought about this? Or, I really love 90% of it, but can we add this? Yes, I absolutely can add that. So it's usually we're working together to make it the best it can be for the audience, for the kids, the students who are going to read it, whoever the audience may be in that
That's
case.
Nice. In other fields, like in music, they say that, let's say, a student strives to become a pianist or a vocalist or whatever. They don't manage to, and then they become critics. Those who didn't accomplish, performing are going to criticize, to make the critical appraisal of the performance, and you can imagine there is kind of animosity. And so, what about writing and working with editors? Don't you feel sometimes, if you are so good, why don't you do it?
Like I said, I've had very good editors.
Good.
So I have not really run into that very much, but I have writer friends who have, so I know that it exists. It's real. It's out there. But especially like my guide editor, you know, we're Christian. It is a ministry. We both have the same passion for kids and for reaching them through the written word, and so like we work together. Like we don't really have clashing because we have the same mission.
I see. Yeah, I was having a question, but
Sorry.
You developed an interest in sciences, quite different from your wife. Do you have an explanation why?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I can remember I loved numbers. I loved collecting baseball cards and basketball cards and football cards, and the greatest joy for me was looking at the stats and seeing, you know, how well they're doing, and then adding them up and dividing them and figuring out the averages. So I just have always loved numbers, and I was drawn just to that type of learning. And I love science because you get to experiment and try new things and see what works, what doesn't work. It's just a joy to work with my hands.
You mean labs? Did you like working in the
Yeah,
lab?
when I taught science, you know, I've taught science at Atlanta North for 3 years there, and we did labs every week. We go down the kids, you know, it's all hands-on type of activities where they get to try different techniques and see what works, what's the best, get messy. Those are the best ones. Parents might not agree, but we really enjoy that. And in the last 2 years, I've taught math for all the students in grades 5 through 8.
5 to 8.
And it's been a wonderful experience.
I don't know about math education here in America, but you know, prospective math teacher in Romania, in college, they go in depth with mathematics. They go way beyond the classical, the traditional, you know, calculus and things like that. They go to all kinds of counterintuitive, you know, algebras and geometries, non-Euclidean geometry. I mean, I don't know about here.
You definitely can do that. For elementary math, you basically need to know up to like algebra 2. We don't ever get into the calculus or anything like that.
Yeah, I was thinking of that in college. You go, you know, to the edge of knowledge in that respective field, and when you finish, you return to 4th grade or 5th grade to teach such, you know, basic, you know, whatever is your field. And I suppose it's a shock, you know, you expanded your mind as much as possible to grasp those, you know, hard concepts and everything. And then what's the use of that? Because what you do is, you know, years behind of that. How it was for you? Are you satisfied, I mean? Are you fully satisfied with basic things being taught to children year after year? And
I think it was good because I was able to use strategies to solve problems, you know, to bring them the problem solving skills. Because to them, it's, you know, it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, you know, I can see what needs to be done and how to do it, but the goal I have is to teach them how to figure it out without me. And you know, a lot of math has to do with confidence. You know, kids come in with this idea.
Speak more on that. Speak more on that, because quite soon, I don't know about here, but in my memories as a schoolboy, you know, in the first few weeks, some pupils develop confidence and some feel like, I don't think I'm going to be any good of that. And it's like missing a train. You try then to catch the train, but the train moves faster and faster. The more you ran, the longer the gap. You know?
That's absolutely what happens, and I can see it the second I see a new fifth grader come into my classroom. I can tell the ones that are confident in math and the ones that just automatically believe they're not good at math. That's just a belief they have, and that's like they've accepted it. Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes from just struggling early on. But also, you have parents. I hear this all the time from parents. It's like, I'm not a math person. I'm not a math person. So, I send them to my husband or I send them to my wife. And I think kids pick up on that, and they decide to themselves, I'm not a math person. I'm not going to be good at math.
And
so
as long as they keep that perception, they are not going to be.
Yeah, because they don't believe that they can do it. So it's always a struggle, and they do as little as possible to get by, and they
what can you do?
Yeah. And it makes it,
especially in today's work environment, without math you can't do almost anything.
Yeah.
I mean, anything, because even if professionally you are not there in the everyday life with banks and tax return form and everything, you have to have a grasp of basic math.
Yeah, it's true, and I try to get the kids to understand that, because one of the main questions I hear all the time is, why do I need to learn this? Why is math important?
Yeah.
So I try to show them different parts of life where you need to understand the basics of math, and it's also math stretches your mind, and it forces you to look at things differently and come up with solutions to problems. So you're not just using those skills in math; you can use it for any subject, any part of life.
Do you also see in math beauty and elegance?
I love math because it's a universal language, and the numbers always tell the truth. And there's order. I like order. I love the formulas. I love seeing how everything comes together. And I try to show that, I try to share this with the kids. Not always easy, because math. No one thinks math is fun. As much fun as I think math is.
So can you teach math with a smile on your face?
I try to every day, because if I can show them that I'm enjoying it and it's fun, then I want it to be contagious, and I want them to have this idea that they can do it. It's not going to be easy all the time, because math isn't supposed to be easy, but just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it. And that's the mindset a lot of kids these days have, is if it's hard, I'm going to spend maybe a minute trying, and then it's like, it's too hard. The kids, if we start an assignment and the second I am done telling what the assignment is and they raise their hand, they say, I need help. It's like, well, did you look at it? Did you read the instructions? Did you take some time? I always want them to learn that they can do it without me helping them all the time. And I think that's the hardest part, is getting kids just to believe that they can do it. So building up their confidence is one of the things I try to do as much as possible, and just give them constant praise, and try to make it fun, incorporating different games and technology, and just to show them that math isn't just about sitting down and writing numbers. It's fun.
But obviously there are also different mind settings. People like
learning styles,
learning styles. Some pupils are more attracted to, words, other by numbers, some by pictures, by sounds, and so on. So you have to find a way to find an avenue to mind.
Because you have the visual learners who can see me do the problem and they get it. You have the audio learner, the ones that need to hear how it's done. You have the ones that need to touch things. So we have hands-on manipulatives where they can see it with their hands. And even you can get creative in math. You can use art, and music is one way that you can with the counting. You know how to keep time with the music, and so there's many different ways you can to teach math. And
Let me ask you one more question, and then I'll turn to you for a longer time. Modern technology, tablets, smartphones, everything has an application for doing, calculus and things like that. Are they a help or are they a hindrance in developing the mathematical mind. Of course, we can't, get rid of them. They are
Right.
here to
Right.
stay.
Exactly.
But from your perspective, what do you think?
I think it just depends on how you use it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in our school, we don't allow the kids to have their phones
Mhm.
on campus.
Mhm.
So we try to keep that, so it's not distracting them.
Mhm.
Obviously, phones, you can do a lot of math
Yes.
on phones,
Mhm.
but I try to use more technology in the classroom. We're working together, whether it be a computer game or, we have a 3D printer we use with mathematics, those type of things. So I just think technology, depending on how you use it, can be a great help.
Do you think there is still a place in memorizing?
Definitely.
It is.
Facts. I mean, that's one of the things I work on a lot is memorizing facts, is because the easy stuff, you want to be able to come to you quickly.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
not struggling with those basic concepts.
Mhm.
So, I incorporate both. Memorizing multiplication table,
Yeah.
very important, because it's not just memorizing, you are training your brain to work quickly.
Mhm.
And, mental math is
Mental, yeah, yeah.
is another thing I try to teach them, because, it keeps your brain sharp.
Yeah, yeah. That's a challenge, I suppose,
Yeah.
and it's more. It will be more and more.
Definitely, because they have when they're not in school, they just pull out their phone,
Yes, yes.
punch in the numbers, answer, So, I mean, I know I don't try to disparage
Mhm.
technology,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but definitely try to show them the benefits of mental math, using your brain, thinking for yourself, figuring it
Thank you.
out. Yeah.
So, do you read a lot
Yeah, I try to read every day.
every day? What genre?
I like all different kinds of genres. Like some Christian fiction, some science fiction, action adventure, some classics, historical. I like historical fiction
As a
lot.
professional writer, what do you take out of your reading? You read it for emotions, you read it to learn literary devices, or you learn to enlarge to learn to get inspired.
Yes, all of the
All
above.
of the above. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Like a well-written, beautiful book, I want to pick it apart or just see, okay, so it elicited this very strong emotion in me. So how did the author do that? So that I can, not copying, but you use the same strategies in your own work to do it. Or, starting at an exciting point, so you draw the reader in right away, or using foreshadowing so that the climactic moment is even more powerful at the end. Just things like that. Enjoyment is in there also, but definitely as a writer, it's very inspiring, and like refreshes my own creativity. Because after a long day of writing, like my creativity gets sapped. So reading for me is like filling the tank back up. But so is other things, like drawing or painting, going and hiking in nature, like those things fill my creativity back up again.
When you began writing for publishing, what kind of writing was that?
My first article that I got published was actually in Insight magazine, which is an Adventist publication for youth, yes, for high school and college students, by Pacific Press. They have since discontinued, which is very sad for me, because I read it every week in high school and college.
Not as a youth, because I didn't have it at that time, but even later, and I found it very creative, very challenging.
Yeah, it was a very powerful,
true, very true, very real.
True
very
and real,
life.
yes, and they didn't shy away from tough topics like depression or drug use in teenagers and things like that, things that we needed
And
to talk about.
We don't talk about in regular church.
Yes,
Yeah.
and young people need to have
because
those
that's their life.
discussions, yeah.
So you started with religious magazine, but you have also wrote for secular magazines and.
Yes. After I had my first child, Caleb, I was home with him because I wanted to be a full-time parent. But I also did writing on the side. and wrote for some women's health magazines and parenting magazines for a while.
Yeah. What were? How did you choose your topics? How did you start writing about a topic or another? It was required from you, or it was your own initiative, or both?
Both. When I first started, like, I wrote some articles that I was interested in, or parenting issues, how to get your baby to sleep, because my baby wouldn't sleep. So then I would research it and then say, okay,
so
then I would
share
what I had learned in an article. And then after I kind of got in with the magazines, then the editors would come to me and say, we want you to write a story about XYZ.
I smile because I read an article, you shared the story of trying to wean Caleb when he was 12 months old. And it didn't work, and then you decided you may continue. And then you began researching on the possible benefits of extending the breastfeeding time. And so that was an article.
Right, and in that time, there wasn't very much information out about breastfeeding past 1 year, which now it's very supportive. Lots of pediatricians are saying, yes, breastfeed till 2, or...
So you feel you are ahead of the times?
A little bit, yes, yes. And I actually, after that article, had several mothers who took the time to contact, like find my email and write to me and say how meaningful that article was for them, because they had their pediatricians telling them that breast milk was no longer beneficial after 12 months, like it turned into water, like at a certain time period, and they felt guilty. They were basically shamed into stopping, and their children weren't ready yet. So that was very meaningful to me to know that I had made a positive difference in their lives and empowered them as mothers to do what was best for their children at the time. So those were some of the positive benefits of the writing for parenting magazines.
So sometimes you started from your own experiences, your own struggles, and sometimes from others, but always it enriched you as well, and at least in some instances enriched others in their experiences. Yeah?
Right, that's what I tried to do with everything that I wrote. Like, what is a problem that parents are dealing with, and what are some positive ways that they can get through it, whether it's like tantrums, sleep issues, eating issues, too much TV time. You know, it's very tempting to kind of use television and iPads as a babysitter, but there's a lot of research that's come out that it's harmful, especially for young brains. So just sharing that, what I've learned, I wrote a few articles on those topics as well. But just trying to support parents. It's a hard job. It's definitely a hard job.
Later you started writing stories, and you began working with a publisher, or several publishers for books?
Yes.
Yeah, speak a little about that.
Yeah, so for the last 8 years, maybe 9 years, it's been a long time, I have been writing for a couple of different educational publishers. So educational publishers are different than regular publishers in that they primarily serve schools and libraries. So I was writing children's books that had an educational component written to Common Core standards for specific grade levels that teachers could use in their classrooms to help supplement their lessons.
So this is the niche. These books are used to supplement the teaching material in class and home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see.
Most people know Scholastic, so they're very much like Scholastic, but just smaller. Scholastic is not the only educational publisher. So when I say that, everybody's like, oh, okay, now I understand. Yeah,
and give us some of the topics or the areas, I should say, you cover.
Okay, so I've written some nonfiction books on the planets, like gas giants, the rocky planets. I've written some How a Bill Becomes a Law, the U.S. Constitution, For like pre-K and kindergartners, I've written about like ducks and rabbits, like different farm animals, introduction to what they do, what their the attributes of the animals for kids to learn about. On the fiction side, I've done, for example, I did a series that was fiction, a story about a 5th grade girl who loves science, and she goes on science adventures, but she also loves fashion and getting her nails done. And so it was very much, we wanted, my editor, and I totally agree, to promote STEM, science and math, as being cool for girls, because we have way too many, we don't have enough girls in science and engineering professions, and it's too easy for girls to be like, oh, it's for boys, or it's not cool, it's not, you know, it's not fun, whatever. To say, hey, it's awesome to be a girl and it's awesome to love science. So we wanted to do that and also have things that they could learn. So one adventure, she goes to a zoo and they learn all kinds of different things about different animals, kind of more cool, unique, unusual, unknown facts. Another one, she kind of visits some of the different planets. So obviously there's a little bit of a fantasy element to it, because you can't just zip off from your backyard and go visit the planets, but all the science facts are true and real and were researched by me as I wrote them. So that was a very fun series. I really enjoyed doing that because, again, we need more girls in science.
So by now you have an agenda, like fighting prejudice, gender prejudice, and what would be the traits of good children literature?
Say that again?
What would be the traits, the qualities of good?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when I write in good children's literature, I always try, I think, a redemptive moral, like morality, okay? Like when I write for public schools, I am not allowed to bring up God, right? Like I can't bring up my religious beliefs, but I can still promote those tenets and ideals, right? So honesty is the best policy, treating other people with respect, even if they're mean to you. So I always try to include those kind of moral elements, even in fun adventure stories with lots of humor and lots of action. Like I always try, even when my editor didn't tell me to, like this is just something that I, believe in and am passionate about, that there should be something, uplifting. Yes, exactly. Exactly that. So you can entertain children and also like
without being overly moralizing.
Right. Exactly.
Preaching.
Right. Yeah, like we're not lecturing them, it's fun, it's a story.
To be real, but uplifting.
Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned fiction, and I understand. Sometimes you need this medium to convey some ideas. You have continued writing, longer pieces like a novel, or?
Yes, I have written some longer books. Some of them are still in a drawer at home. So yeah, I do a lot of different things.
It's something you plan to do? No?
Yes, I would love to.
Jeremy, do you have a story? Our time is almost up.
Sure.
You have a story from your time in Romania?
Yeah, I have a couple stories, a couple short ones. The first one happened when we were on our 2-week trip there.
Yes.
And we had come to the end of our summer camp and we were traveling from Bucharest to Hungary. And it was, I think, maybe a 16 or 18-hour train ride, long train ride. So we were all, the group, we were all in separate train compartments. And so we left in the evening. So in the morning we stopped at a train stop, and my best friend and I, Jason, we were quite hungry when we woke up. And we noticed at the train stop there was a little food stand.
Yes.
So we were like, let's just hop off real quick and grab a bite. So we hopped off, didn't tell anybody,
I
because people
almost
were,
anticipated.
I know, like, right? You were like,
people were, our leaders were still sleeping. We didn't want to bug anybody, so we just hopped off and, we ran over there to get something, and unfortunately it was closed. And so we were like, there's another store over there. So we walked over to the store. It said it was open 24 hours. We went to the door and it was locked. So we were like, oh man, that's too bad. And in the distance, we heard this whistle blowing, and we were like, that's weird. We know it should mean something. And so we turned around, and the train was gone, because the whistle was to say, hey, get on the train, we're leaving. And we didn't put the two together. And
it was bye-bye.
it was gone. We turned around, and it was gone. We ran as fast as we could. I could see my sister in the window looking out like, uh-oh. And we ran, and we stopped, and we were like, what are we going to do? We were just, we were two teenage kids in this foreign country, didn't speak the language. And
no money, no papers, no
nothing. And this guy ran out of the crowd and said in perfect English, he's like, are you guys American? And we're like, is it that obvious? Yes. he's like, I know where the train's going. Come with me. So without even thinking, we just ran with him, hopped in his car, and we drove. We drove down these back roads going real fast, and we actually passed the train. We saw the window past the train, got to the next train stop before the train got there. And we got on the train, and everyone was relieved and angry. But we believe, it was an angel. Our guardian angel came in, because we would not have known what to do, and we'd heard stories of people being left behind.
Well, if it was an angel, if it was an angel, let me tell you, it was a Romanian angel.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You make me proud of being a Romanian.
And we made it back, and no one was harmed, and it's been a story, and I think she's writing about it in one of her guide articles that come out soon. So that was me.
So you write for this Adventist magazine for children called Guide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
you are very happy about it.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I read Guide when I was a child, so it's in the juniors room. So 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade is kind of the age range, and every Sabbath there's a new guide full of true, fun stories and fun facts. So I read it as a kid and loved it. My son, who's in 8th grade now, has been reading it for years. Every single week, if we miss a week of church, he will go back and get those. Well, I missed Guide, so he goes back and looks for the last week's one, so he gets it.
Very excited every week to get them.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being with me, and it was such an entertaining and illuminating conversation. I hope some of our young viewers think on developing their writing or their math or together.
Both is good too.
Yes. Thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
At the end.
It was hard?
No.
No.
That was good.
Thank you for making it easy.
Thank you.